Good evening, my friends, and welcome to another episode of ShredMentor Live. I'm your host, Jason Aaron Wood, and tonight we're going to be talking all about your bag of tricks. Now, we're going to get into a lot of stuff tonight. I have 9 particular areas of development that I think that you can really save yourself a lot of time and energy and frustration if you kind of favor those and prioritize those and sort of let that be your criteria instead of what most people tend to do, which is sort of like learn a song, beat the crap out of this one riff over and over and over and over until it's absolutely perfect, and then months have gone by and all you've gotten better at is maybe that riff or maybe a couple other riffs, but it's very slow going, and it's not supposed to be that way. It's just that if you've got the wrong criteria, then you're not going to have much to show for it. Okay, so one of the biggest things, let's head over to the control panel here so that I can see you. If you are in the chat, please let me know if you can hear me, because it would be a shame if you can't. But all right, one of the things that, you know, whether it's fair or not, people's perception of your level of musicianship is kind of based on what you can do on the spot. Okay, I've used this analogy before, but assume you're at like a party and someone just thrusts a guitar in your hand. Hey man, I heard you play us something. It's not polite to do that to people, but let's say you're in that position. You could act like you're not capable of anything, or maybe you're not acting, you know, depends on where you are with your playing. But if all you've been able to do so far is play a song that maybe not many people might like, or you don't have, you know, who knows? I don't know who you hang out with, right? And who knows what the people that you're hanging out with might want to hear, you know? So how do you establish in the moment that you have control of your instrument? Do you play only a couple things you've learned how to do? Or do you make up something on the fly that at least shows you've got the goods? Or do you, you know, I'm of that school of thought, by the way. I like to just show that I can do it. It doesn't matter if I'm purely improvising, as long as what's coming out is good. And there's a lot of ways to do that, but that's what we're going to talk about tonight. So what you can do on the spot, whether we like it or not, that is sort of, you know, if you only get a couple of seconds of someone's attention, which is what you get, how are you going to spend that? How are you going to get their attention and now do something so you can hold their attention, keep it? And I mean, when you cross their attention span, are you just going to leave a little footprint that fades away, or are you going to plant a damn flag? All right, and that's sort of where I want you to go with this. Just think about what you can do to leave a bigger impact. And I'm going to kind of give you a little bit of guidance on this. I'm one guy, but I have done some things with my playing that maybe other people would also like to be able to do. And having gotten over some of those hurdles, I'm going to share with you my opinions, because even though everyone's got them, mine are well-founded and I have reasons for having them. So hopefully this will help you to sort of narrow down what to practice in order to basically get good at everything, and do so without having to practice 1,000,000 hours a day. In fact, not really any more than 1 hour a day, frankly, says science. So it's not like I'm just making up this arbitrary stuff here. Okay, so what you can do on the spot, you know, first of all, this is also going to help you to sort of become what I like to call a one-take wonder. Not a one-hit wonder, a one-take wonder. That is, when you go in to record something, bam, first thing you did, you might not have even known what you were going to do, but it worked because you know what you're doing. That's going to save you a lot of time recording, writing new material. And if you're, for some reason, not recording yourself at home, and you actually have to go to a commercial studio and pay by the hour to record, it's going to save you a lot of money too. But don't even do that. Just go to, get yourself a recording interface if you don't already have it. And if you don't have the software, get Reaper. It's free for 60 days. I don't work for them or anything. It's just there's no reason to not have recording software at home. Matthew, thank you and welcome. Thank you for joining me tonight and for confirming you can hear me. All right, so first of all, you get to be a one-take wonder, which is going to save you time and effort and possibly money if you're still living 20 years ago in the music industry of 20 years ago. But if you have a decent computer at home, you should make it a recording studio. And if you don't have a decent, you know, computer at home, get one so you don't have to be at the mercy of a commercial studio. All right, but anyway, that's one thing it'll make you do. You can just crank out things one after the next. That's how I did it year after year between 2012 and 2017 when I cranked out 6 albums once a year. You know, just, you know, 1 album a year, not 6 albums a year. You know what I mean. My discography happened in the span of about a week every time I actually did the bulk of the writing. Most of the rest of it was me either getting burnt out earlier in the year trying different things to see where I wanted to go that year, or getting burnt out mixing, or maybe getting burnt out on the vocals. Most of it I would write in about 1 to 2 weeks. So Reflections was written that way. Glass Idols was a little different. A lot of that was done rapidly. A couple of those pieces were from all the way back to as early as 2005. But Labyrinth of Dreams, that was just a lot of cranking material out. That album didn't even start as an idea or any of the material until like late July of the year it was released. That was 2014. What came after that? Not Glass Idols. The other one, Iconoclast. Also known as Iconoclast. That was also written, with the exception of a couple songs. I just would set aside like a week and just crank it all out. And this is why I was able. I didn't even know these damn songs each time. Every album I basically did this. I would set aside about 1 to 2 weeks, usually in the summer, usually around my birthday, late June for me. So sometime around then, I would just sort of, as a gift to myself, give myself a whole week, just like, nobody signed me up for anything. Lessons are canceled. I'm just going to record. And just bam, bam, bam. The minute I'm done with the song, I don't even go back and listen to it. I don't know this friggin' song at all. Move on to the next one. Just bam, bam, bam. But it's because I did the things we're going to talk about tonight. Okay, another thing, okay? This being able to do cool things on the spot will allow you to show off for your friends or at strangers at Guitar Center, or you can, wherever, online with videos, live streams, whatever, endless possibilities, really. And let's not pretend there's not some aspect of showmanship involved in being able to shred like a god. That's what we want. That's what we want, right? You've worked hard for it. You deserve some recognition and some praise for it. Nothing wrong with that, and no shame to be had. And the only people willing to shout it out are usually people who don't feel like they're worthy of it themselves. And it's easier to tear somebody else down than build yourself up to where you are praiseworthy. So screw them. Show off if you want to. No problem. And if you don't want to, don't. But the next thing would also be, if you want to audition for a band, they might want to see, they'll definitely want to see that you can play their songs, but what else can you do for them in the future? You're only getting them through their past up to their present if all you can do is play their songs. Can you do anything cool with the ideas that you've learned in their songs? Can you just do kick-ass stuff that's just on the spot to show what your style is? There's a lot you can do, and winning that audition would actually be really good for your career if you're looking to do this as a career. It can put you, it can give you visibility that despite however much skill you have, you might not have gotten on your own. So, Megadeth tends to go through guitarists every 10 years. Maybe the next one or something like that, Anyway, and of course, one of the other things you might want to do here with what you can do on the spot is to, in an improv type setting, jam with others. And so that's all the things we're going to touch on are going to do. And in addition to jamming with others, you might also want to be starting your own band. What you can do on the spot is a little less of a, well, it's not like it's irrelevant. What you can do on the spot is sort of going to let people know what they might be signing up for. And the better you are on the spot, the wider the range of higher caliber musicians you're going to be eligible to get into your band. So there's a lot of good stuff that can come from just being able to do kick-ass stuff on the spot. So let's talk about what these things are. I've narrowed it down to a tiny 9 areas. I know it's a lot still, but 9 areas that I would recommend that you kind of use as your criteria. What you might want to do is take a piece of paper, draw 2 lines, basically divide the paper into 3 columns, and then also 3 rows. So 2 lines vertical, 2 lines horizontal, and then, maybe I'll make a downloadable link or something if you don't feel like doing that right now. But anyway, though, each of them, that will give you 9 squares, so you can kind of create an area. Put a little tiny label so you know which one's which, but basically, rhythm skills, sequences, licks from your favorite guitarists, more standard kind of licks, like blues or rock licks that you've learned in general, techniques and patterns that you've learned really well. That might be a little hard to fit into a little square on a paper, but do your best. Great phrasing, any techniques of phrasing that you can do well. We'll talk about those as we go. Getting your speed up, what kinds of things can you do fast? Building a solid vocabulary of chord progressions that you can work with and actually play along to, and even just jam with, and create your own riffs and solos based on them. And of course, practicing writing your melodies and harmonies constantly. These are all things that you can get really good at, and they will pay off a lot better than just practicing some band's riff over and over again, which is unfortunately many people do. There's a strong pull toward relying on tablature that other people did all the thinking and work to put together for you, and now you have simplified it so far that you're actually not going to get a great deal of long-lasting benefit out of it, only the ability to play that one thing, assuming that the person did it correctly. So you're sort of encouraging yourself not to trust your own thinking, not to do your own thinking, not to trust your own ears, or your fretboard knowledge, or challenge yourself, or find better locations where to play things. A lot of things kind of get in the way when you have too long a reliance on tab. And tab really is great for, I would say that tab is training wheels. Okay, tab is how to introduce yourself to an idea. It's just like training wheels. It's the introduction to riding a bicycle. Tablature is training wheels for a guitar idea. So it's not wrong. Just, if you get on a bike and use training wheels, and then 10 years down the line you're still using training wheels and wondering why you're not getting any better at riding a bike, well, it's because you're still using training wheels way too long after. So that's why I use that analogy, because that's exactly how tab tends to work. If you're learning the other things you need to learn in order to get good at the instrument, then you don't need to worry about getting good at this little tiny, minuscule, tiny individual things. Don't get so specific about what you're going to actually focus on. Right? So I just threw you the entire list right now, but we're going to get into them one by one. I'm going to give some tips and my thoughts on what's important about them, what to focus on, what to practice, how to sort of evolve that as you go, because I don't ever practice the same things the same way all the time, for the most part, okay? I always look for another angle that I can play things. So I'm not practicing just single things. I'm practicing overall skills, and there's a very big difference in the payoff here, because I'm getting much more familiar with the overall instrument and how to make the sounds I want to hear, not how to play that one melody exactly like the recording. And I used to do that, so it's not like I'm smarter or better, and I just learned that doesn't really pay off. And I figured out what really does, because I'm always looking for patterns that underlie things, and that just fascinates me in life. I'm looking for patterns all the time, patterns beyond the patterns, not just the fretboard patterns in the books, but like, what scale is that? Oh, interesting. So they use that scale all the way up until here. I'm just analyzing all the time. Right? But anyway, these are some of those areas. So let's talk first about rhythmic skills. And by the way, all of these things pretty much are something, almost all of them, are something that you can do using guitar practice tools. Okay, and I wanted to mention that because guitar practice tools, as I've said before, you can get a free trial, but it's no longer 7 days. I've decided to just, why not? You can have a full 30 days for free when you sign up right now. So go over to guitarpracticetools.com and you'll be seeing the same things that you're seeing on the screen with me, but with your username and full access to the site. Okay, so I'm going to be over here, and this is the main Guitar Practice Tools menu when you get to the site, once you're signed up, of course. I'm going to be using, first of all, the My Backing Tracks thing. It's the second one here. This is my favorite one because I know the parts of my fretboard well enough. As you're learning it, you'll probably want to use the Guitar Practice Whiteboard, this top left one here. But for now, I'm going to be using the practice beats. Okay, now your rhythmic skills, this could be anything, but ultimately, specifically, you want to be able to create a sense of syncopation. So let me give a very specific, I'll just use a really basic kick and snare only beat. Okay, this is like, there's nothing to this at all. Okay, I'll just pick 120, the default tempo of everything. Hopefully this isn't too loud compared to the guitar, but anyway. So if I just go like that, I'm not doing anything different from what the beat is, so it's not syncopated at all. But I'm mostly sticking to one note or one power chord for the most part. Right? So the ability to create rhythm patterns on a basic pace, at a certain pace or pulse, that's the essence of syncopation. Your ability to generate interesting rhythms as you go. So rhythmic interest in general is That's a big one. Being able to play off of different subdivisions of the existing beat, whatever the tempo might be. Obviously, the faster and faster that tempo goes, the fewer options you're going to be able to actually execute, because, you know, you're going to get fast enough and 16th notes are just going to sort of be off the table, for example. You know, at a certain pace, no matter who you are and how good you are, there is a tempo where 16th notes stop being an option, okay? That's just built in. That's just part of tempo. But you always have eighth notes and quarter. You can always go up a fraction of a beat from there, okay? So rather than, you know, or instead a 16th note, if we think of that as a quarter of a beat, 1/4 of a beat, then we can always go to an eighth note, which is a half of a beat. And then there's a quarter note, which is usually one beat, but, you know, over the span of 2 beats, that's only half the time if it's 1 beat. You know? So we can go to a half note. We can go to a whole note. We can always double the tempo once we reach that point, you know, or once we get to the point where the tempo is so fast we can't operate anymore. We can then scale it back to the next slower subdivision of the beat, and we can play still a pretty wide variety of things, okay? And in what I just did, just obviously just making stuff up here, I combined quarter notes, probably not too much, but eighth notes, 16th notes, eighth note triplets. I might have done a burst in there. I already forgot what I played. Okay, but I was making stuff up just to demonstrate my idea. Okay, so we have that. We also have polyrhythms and polymeter. We hear about that a lot. I'm going to get out of kick and snare only, and I'm going to go to 16th note double bass. I want you to be able to hear the actual sub beats. So I'm going to use this. This will be 120 again. Most of these I'll use. But what I'm going to do, okay, so in 4/4, 16th notes are 1E and a, 2E and a, 3E and a, 4E and a. I'm going to play in 12/8. No, I'm going to play in 12/16. So I'm going to 16th notes are the beat, and I'm going to play 12 of them. Okay. The idea with anything that's 12, it's typically 4 groups of 3. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. Okay. I'm going to do something, I'm going to purposely... 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. All right, I'm going to try to get that to sound like kind of like triplety. I'm just making up whatever so it can be 12. Okay, so I'm going to play that 12 at the same pace as the 16th notes over a different time signature. Okay, that's more like polymeter. I'll talk about polyrhythms after that. That's my speed, right? Yeah, like that. It's a little bit dizzying because when we play in a regular, you know, in the same time signature, it's like I'm playing in a different time signature than the rest of the music, but I'm playing at the same speed with my subdivisions of the beat. My 16th notes are the same speed as those 16th notes. Your mile marker in time for that main beat isn't there, so it's easy to get lost in that thing. But so that's not polyrhythms, that's polymeter. That is basically playing meter is time signature. So you're playing one time music in one time signature over music in another time signature. The more common thing we hear about, which sometimes polymeter gets lumped in with, is polyrhythms. Polyrhythms is like basically, so it's sort of like imposing a different subdivision of the beat over the one that's already there. There are probably people who can word it better, but this is how I draw the distinction. Choose separate things you can do. Don't forget what they are. If I call them the wrong thing, hell with me. Doesn't matter as much what you call it, as long as you understand what it is and what the skill is, so that you focus on it. If you don't know about it, you're not going to focus on it. So that's more important. Anyway, I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to do the same exact melody. Oops. Right? But I'm going to do it as eighth note triplets, ignoring the 16th notes, but I'm going to line it up. All right? So let's just do this. Just start over. 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. That's my triplets. reality. Right? So now I'm basically forcing triplets over 16th notes. I'm forcing groupings of 3 over an already audible groupings of 4. Okay, so that's also hard. What I'm selectively focusing on is the 1, where that's 1E into 1E into 1E into 1E into. I'm just focusing on the 3s. But 1 triplet, 2 triplet, 3 triplet, 4 triplet over 1E into 2E into 3E into 4E into 1 triplet, 2 triplet, 3 triplet, 4 triplet. Another way to get comfortable with this, by the way, which is not that different, it's something I practice even when I'm nowhere near an instrument or my website, is something that I actually do with my car blinker. So if you don't use your blinker, start using your damn blinker. But anyway, your turning signal. Go back to kick and snare only because this is sort of representative of this. But what I would also recommend doing is spend some time simply alternating back and forth between 2 different things. The way that you subdivide the beat, okay? So 2 into 3, 3 into 4, and 4 into 6, okay? You can do 5 if you want. I've started to incorporate 5s in the last couple of years, but I don't need them as much. I don't need to be able to play quintuplets that often. It's just not, I don't need it. Anyway, but yeah, okay, so I'm going to play kick snare only at 120. I'll do a little slower so I can go all the way up to 110 here. All right, so think double, triple. So whatever the speed is, I'm going to go double, which is, this is quarter notes, so I'm going to go 8th notes for 4 beats, and then I'm going to go 8th note triplets for 4 beats. And it's sort of like changing gears really quick, but here's what it sounds like. So 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 triplet, 2 triplet, 3 triplet, 4 triplet, 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 triplet, 2 triplet, 3 triplet, 4 triplet. So right? So yeah, you can kind of just doing that a lot will prepare you more readily for what that other rhythmic feel sounds like. You just have to go out of your way to do it a while so that you can, it's almost like if you've never heard a song before and you were asked to sing the chorus, you're not going to be able to do it. But if you're familiar with it, you've heard it a bunch of times, yeah, you kind of know how it goes. You don't even necessarily need to hear it. Now I can just go dun, 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 dun. Helicopters going over my house. I assure you they're not looking for me. I think. Maybe they're looking for lessons. I'll give them. So, anyway, all right. So anyway, you do the same idea. 1, 2 triplets to 16ths, right? 1, 2, 3, 4. One triplet, 2 triplet, 3 triplet, 4 triplet, 1 E into 2 E into 3 E into 4 E into 1 triplet, 2 triplet, 3 triplet, 4 triplet, 1 E into 2 E into 3 E into 4 E into. Gotta breathe. Okay, so the next one will be 4 into 6. So 16ths for 4 beats and then 6 tuplets. So. Right, so that is, and then you can go between other ones. You can just do like 8th notes into 16ths. Triplets into 6 tuplets. One, two, three, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1. You can go between 8th notes and sextuplets too. I guess that's the last combination here, but right? And that alone, that activity, just get that in regular rotation, you're going to be really comfortable switching into and out of polyrhythms no matter what's going on. And it can really add a nice kind of breakdown kind of feeling, or just some, as I said, rhythmic interest. That's the blanket term here. That is what's really important, is keeping what you do with rhythm interesting, playing off of the downbeats, but also don't forget to bring out some of those upbeats. You know, your ability to create a phrase that doesn't always start right on the downbeat is also part of that, but that we'll count that in with phrasing later. Okay, so anyway, that's that. Now, there is also one thing I have to say, and I got to do it this way. The next thing is sequences. Of course I have to do that, you know. Sequences! Got to do it again. All right, so yeah, having a vocabulary of just being able to play within scales using sequences is going to save you so much work in the long run, because especially the way I laid them out in the book of sequences. So if you don't have a copy of that, go to ShredMentorOnline.com/products. Get yourself just the ebook copy. It's only $10. Get that. Just study the hell out of it. Start applying these patterns, these formulas to your scales, instead of just playing up and down the same scale. No one wants to listen to that. If you rip this out when you're saying, hey man, play us something, okay. Yeah, okay, nice scale, buddy. But that's, you know, can you play anything? That's you just haven't played anything at that point. Hey, Vicky, welcome. Thanks for joining me tonight. For those of you who are not familiar with her, Vicky has a really cool show on MetalDevastationRadio.com on Saturday nights at 8 p.m. Eastern Time. Lady Red's Bath of Blood. You should definitely check it out. This Saturday, every Saturday, MetalDevastationRadio.com. And thank you for joining me tonight, Vicky. Okay, so yeah, so we were talking about sequences. So I'm going to have as much fun with that as I can, probably every episode, because you know I'm going to say the word sequences. But yes, I mean, instead of, yeah, what about, it's a little better, it's a little longer, isn't it? Oh, you're on tonight. I'm sorry. What time are you on tonight, Vicky? Sorry, I've misled you. Are you also on Saturday, or have you switched? I don't want to mislead people, because then they're going to miss the show. Anyway, but yeah, so what I did there, it's a lot longer, but it's also, it's got a rhythmic figure to it. 1 E and a 2 E and a 3 E and a, however many of them I need. This is where playing a sequence a certain number of times, first of all, there's a rhythmic basis of whatever the one theme is that you're repeating as a sequence. So in this case, I did the sequence of 4s. 1, 2, 3, 4, 2, 3, 4, 5, 3, 4, 5, 6. So think of it as like a length of cloth you might buy at the arts and crafts or fabric store. You know, just it's on a roll. How much do you need? You don't need the whole damn roll. You know, that would be what I played there, playing the entire thing. That's the entire roll. You don't need all that, but maybe I need 8 beats worth. All right, let's do it. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and then a final note. Oops, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. Right? And now, you know, going back to that one take wonder, if you know, oh, you know what? If I do that over this part, the note I land on, hey, that actually is in the chord I'm going to go to. Or if it's not, you just go to a different final note, right? Because if you know there's a chord change where that E doesn't fit, or maybe it's like a D minor at the end. A minor, the A minor scale, by the way. So let's say if I'm coming back to a D minor chord at the end, I might play an F instead of an E. Sorry. You were going up anyway, just go up an extra note in the scale, and it can be very natural. So it can save you so much time planning out what you're going to do. So don't forget about sequences. Seriously, there's a reason I bring them up almost every damn episode. This is episode 44 now. I think I've brought them up at least more than once every time, so at least 44 times since last October. Okay, so yeah, learn new sequences. Get yourself a copy of the Book of Sequences. It's a good investment, just like having a decent guitar. You also need a good investment into things that you can play, and that's the better thing. Like every major composer you've ever heard of used sequences all the time. That all classical music is just packed full of them. It's a writing tool, but it's also a fantastic speed and technique development tool, and helps to furnish you with really good, useful, melodic sounding motor memory, so that when you do accidentally start playing with your hands instead of your ears, you've already sort of programmed your hand to play things that sound good and that have a specific rhythm. You can play a sequence at any length you want, but the way I laid it out in the book allows you to really kind of organize your thoughts by which rhythmic situation this one's good for. Because there's never a time when you shouldn't be playing within the rhythm, right? Even if you're purposely superimposing one, like I showed you with like polymeter or polyrhythms. Anyway, that's all I'm going to say about sequences. All right, now Vicky said both in half. Okay, both and in half hour. Okay, so cool. Still Saturday nights. Again, MetalDevastationRadio.com. Lady Red's Bath of Blood. Also happening as soon as my show's done. So you should go. Oh, she's back on Tuesday. Is this regular now, Vicky? By the way, sorry. Is it just tonight, or are you back on Tuesday? I know you used to be on Tuesdays at 9 o'clock. So again, that's all Eastern times I'm saying here. So yeah, let me know. The next thing we've got here. Okay, licks from your favorite guitarists. Okay. I said right off the bat, you might be spending a lot of your time learning, stuff like songs, riffs, and whatever, and that's cool. It's good. If I didn't do that a bit myself, I would not be the guitarist I became. It is part of who we all are. We absorb our influences. So I don't mean to say don't do that. Just don't only do that. Okay. So picking up bits from your favorite guitarists. My original favorite guitarists were Dave Murray and Adrian Smith, because I started listening to Iron Maiden when I was like 9 years old, and after 3 years of just doing that almost entirely, and then suddenly discovering, Black Sabbath and Dream Theater and Ozzy all in probably the same year before I started playing guitar, it was just too much. I had to get a damn guitar and start playing. So anyway, I was really familiar with Peace of Mind and Power Slave, and probably a few other albums by that point too, but especially those two, because I've been listening to them like crazy up until 1992 when I started playing. But there's there's something off of Iron Maiden, Somewhere in Time, that I really like. I don't think I throw this in anywhere, but I might borrow from it a little bit. And this is, again, you do your own thing with it. So obviously you don't plagiarize somebody's lick, but it was like that section, okay? I forget if that's, I think it's Wasted Years, maybe? Anyway, but that is, it's basically just an alternating between the root and the fifth. But we're bending into each of those notes from the whole step below it. And we're throwing that in between each one. So anyway, that's, I haven't done a whole lot of borrowing other people's licks, because I'm constantly just kind of trying, where I borrowed licks from Bach. So my favorite artists have been dead for a few hundred years. So I'll do stuff, and when I'm messing around, I'll end up doing. Good. It's a very Johann Sebastian Bach kind of thing to do. So, and you will end up just absorbing things that you learn how to play. So it's not, that makes sense. One of my favorite artists is Bach and Vivaldi. There are things that I've sort of picked up there too. But yeah, just from the earliest part of my playing, I was already interested in somewhat in actual classical music, as well as classical sounding metal, which is, there's often a gap between those, to be honest. But it comes out as fairly metal when I do it, although I'm not really concerned with whether it is or not sometimes. Anyway, so licks from your favorite guitarists. Don't be afraid to try doing new things with some ideas. Re-rhythmize them, move them to different keys, experiment. Once you've decided, or determined rather, which scale they're using to do that, try it with a different scale, or try moving something around within the scale. So like, what if I take, instead of that lick, what if instead of just back and forth between these two held out notes, what if I try to make it a sentence? So what if it's something like a, so it's going to take some work to get that there, but so I got to probably move it up. But I can kind of borrow that, but there's a different melodic, so I know, I might have to work on that a little bit, but just to give you an idea of like what you might want to do to it once you have someone else's lick. Because you don't want to just rip it off and throw it in somewhere. Oh, hey, so suddenly we're playing Wasted Years here. I thought we were listening to your music. And, Iron Maiden's lawyers will be in touch or something, right? You don't want something like that to happen, but they learned those licks from their favorite guitarists, and their favorite guitarists learned it from their favorite musicians. And so this isn't, we're all learning from the people who came before us. This is sort of how all artistic endeavors have to happen. And technology, now, all progress as humans, all human progress is built on previous human progress. That's why we don't want to reinvent the wheel, because that would be stupid, because that was already done. So of course, right? So that is only number 3 in my list, but I promise I'll get going a little faster on these, okay? Part of this is mindset, so I don't mind taking a little longer on these first few, because I want to establish some things. But anyway, while I'm taking time, I'll invest a little time into not choking on a live stream. Anyway, okay, next. Other licks, standard licks. Not so much from the bands that you've done, but more the kind of thing you might get from like a PDF of like 500 to 500,000 blues licks or something like that. Different things that you can kind of use and throw in, and they're already kind of amorphous. They don't have to be played exactly the same way. So like the standard blues lick that a lot of people learn first is I could just go I could just go I can just do that, or just the idea is there. Bend from the 4th into the 5th, play the 5th again probably, and then go to the root above it. And then sometimes you might go down to the 5th again, hit the 7, and bend back in. But you might go. You can skip, you can leave out some notes in there, try different things, then try a different rhythm pattern like that. Yeah, there's a lot of cool stuff you can still do with this kind of thing. This is what makes the blues sound happen. This is what that style is based on, is these types of melodies. So, and it's very pentatonic scale based, but it's not entirely. It's all the way you use certain notes in the minor pentatonic scale, which ones to bend from, which ones to do certain things that give it. You don't just bend whatever from any note. You have to be doing, do certain things from certain notes. There's this little on the 3rd, the minor 3rd of the minor pentatonic scale. If you do a little tiny bend up at the end of the note only going up, you don't want to go. That isn't it. It's so staccato it for a minute. I only used the blues note that we all learned in the blues scale one time at the end there. Skip right over it. Still got a bluesy sound, because the blues scale is not purely all there is to that sound. It's just one particular way of using the note between the 4th and the 5th in addition to the 4th and the 5th. Right, so learning a lot of standard kind of licks that you can throw in, blues licks in particular, because they are, blues is the uncle of rock. So let's not forget about Uncle Blues when we're learning rock, and frankly metal too. It's both of their uncles, So we do want to learn that kind of thing. That's probably it. But rock licks, there's it's already going to be a little bit infused with blues, but maybe you don't want to go purely into blues. Like, I'm not really a blues fan, to be a little bit blasphemous, but not on purpose. For once, I'm not really into listening to blues too much. If there's really badass guitar playing, I'll listen. Sure, I'm into that. But frankly, it's not really my listening material. But blues-infused rock is what I grew up with. I was born in 1979, so I was aware in the early mid-'80s at that point. I was listening to Twisted Sister on my own accord in 1984 when We're Not Gonna Take It started coming on MTV, back when they played music videos. That was cool then. All the music that happened between about 1984 and the rest of the 80s was actually happening in real time as I was growing up. So it's the sound of my childhood anyway. There's a lot of really cool guitar playing, if you haven't noticed, that came out of the 80s. So, that might already help you to kind of establish a more rock-like sound with your blues licks, because some of it might just be a little too over-the-top bluesy, You might not want to sound, Delta blues or whatever, You might not want to sound like some of the earlier scenes in the movie Crossroads. You might want to sound a little more like the ending scenes at Crossroads, or whatever. Anyway, enough of that. So, yeah, learn actual licks. Again, don't make any one of these all you do. I'll talk about this at the end here, but I want to make you able to deal with this. And if you can, I can help you do it, because that's part of what I do. It's the biggest part of what I do with ShredMentor, is manage practice schedules, so that you can actually, you don't have to, even though Steve Vai said he practiced for 10 hours a day, and I have no doubt he did, and I'm sure it helped make him the guitar player he became, he also spent his time wisely when he was practicing, and science says that your concentration level just goes plummeting after about 52 minutes. So I wonder how well the other 9 hours went after the first one. Anyway, regardless, you don't have to spend 10 hours to get really good. You can just do an hour a day, carve that time out, and make time. But anyway, we'll talk about that at the end. 5, okay? Techniques or patterns that you've learned really well. Stuff you've come up with, your own riffs and licks, or ways. This could be all overlap with sequences, frankly, but perhaps you've come up with one thing that goes a very certain way, and it's something you can always pull out, something you came up with, something you're proud of, something you're good at. Going back to however many episodes ago when I said, never show them your crap. This is going to have to be something you're good at. What you can do on the spot, all of this stuff tonight is stuff that you're actually good at, but maybe some technique that you've developed really well. Let's say that, I think one of the things, it's basically what do you reach for because you're comfortable with it and you feel like you've made some progress. Maybe your bag of tricks doesn't have much in it yet. In the beginning, none of us have much in it. We don't really have anything in it. And when you first pick up the guitar, you find out it's not that friendly an instrument at all. So no one has anything in their bag of tricks when they start, right? But as you get good at things, this is what we're going to deal with. So let's say you've gotten to a point where you can do a couple things pretty well. So you might want to whip out a little sweep, even if you're still working on the longer ones. Let's say you can get like a... And maybe, if you're feeling confident, you might go in for some crazy slide at the end just to add a little bit of extra control to the mix, right? Something like that. Something you can, and that would be something I could pull out right now. There are certain things that I'm still not good at, and I have neglected them probably my entire 30 years of playing, and so I'm not going to pull those things out and show you, hey, what can you do? I'm not going to show you what I can't do. You don't know what I meant to do anyway, frankly. I didn't know what I meant to do until like a split second before I did it either. So, we're all on the same page here, really. But, something that you've worked on enough that you can kind of just do it, and even if it's the same thing you do every time when you first pick up your guitar because you're good at it and you wanted to start off on a good note, proverbially speaking, just that. If you really love tapping and you've come up with some kick-ass tapping patterns or something like that, or you learn someone else's really kick-ass tapping pattern and then you can work with it. Always try to do something to make it your own, but things you've learned really well. Just whatever you're really good at already, that's always something that should be in your bag of tricks. Ready to go when you need it, okay? 6, and this is something I've talked about a bunch of times, but great phrasing, all right? If you're going to be playing here, Sorry, yeah, I missed Vicky's comment there. Yes, it has been. I think tonight is my last Tuesday, but I'll always be sad. Okay. Okay, listen, I didn't know if I had missed Tuesdays for a while, so I don't know if I'm going to be able to make it tonight, unfortunately, but I will. I will always try for the Saturdays. I've been pretty bad at it lately. Okay, so phrasing. You know, I think one of the best things you can do for your phrasing is, oh man, is not have a 503 error when you try to load up your drones, but it'll come up in a second. Yeah, it's better to use this over drones or chord progressions. Yeah, here's my drones page. So let's say I'm C minor. All right. All right. So. So first thing I reach for with phrasing is bending. Work on your bending. If you are just kind of getting near the, you know, if you're, all right, when you do a bend, if you're not hitting the note exactly every damn time, you need to practice it more. Because this is where, you know how unforgiving we can be when people are a really bad singer? Well, just stop, please stop, right? So this is sort of where the same standard is held on guitar playing. Right. When woodshedding, make sure that this is one of the things that you practice a lot. Okay. I spent 2 years from 2010 through most of 2011 just doing this nonstop every day with other things, but never-ending focus at that point. And frankly, I mean I never stopped. I didn't like stop focusing on it after 2011. I started to devote all my time to doing it with all the things I'm doing, to add phrasing into everything. So adding my ability to bend well and consistently was a 2-year effort, along with the quality of my vibrato. Those are the two biggest things that I came away with. And it all got a lot better, right? So the ability to perform vibrato the way you want it to be. So let's go back to that C here. So start off slow so that you can hear yourself approaching the target pitch. Stop exactly as you get there. And just hold. Don't worry about vibrato yet. Excuse me. Okay, and as you get more comfortable with the tension on the string and what it feels like, how much muscle you have to put into it, supporting your ring finger if you're using that with any, or if, you know, whatever finger you use for the bend, support it with the remaining fingers of a lower number. So if you're using your third finger, use your second and first finger. You're not trying to make one finger do all this job if it doesn't have to. And you can get a little faster into it once you're comfortable. Alright, this window's got to go. It's almost giving me allergies. Anyway. Now you can also practice your vibrato separately. And then once you feel comfortable with it, now you'll hold it, and then for two reasons. You want to make sure you actually hit the note before you start wobbling all over the place, but also to establish that note in your listener's ear first. Right, so that's a big part of it. Excuse me, sorry. Allergies are still coming at me. Anyway, though, so notice I'm using a drone for this because I can. It's an ear training device too. Again, this is your guitar actually singing. You don't have the visual reference that you would normally have when you're just moving between frets. But start bending as much as you can in your lead playing because it's very boxy unexpressive to not bend ever. Just always moving between notes is, it kind of gets a little bit stale and feels very color by number. I'm not saying that to insult your playing. I'm just saying this is where I was too. I hear it a lot in other people's playing. I can tell when they haven't focused on their phrasing. This is one of the things that if nothing, this is probably, I think if I had to pick one of the things I'm talking about tonight, that's the one you should focus on the most, is your phrasing. Matthew's saying, eventually get to that Zach Wild or Dimebag wide vibrato. Yes, especially, and you don't have to do it eventually. I mean, just while you're working on it, there's 3 aspects to your vibrato too. So you don't have to wait. You can just do that right away. There is, first of all, I told you about delaying it about a beat. So that you establish the note first, and then you add the polish, which is what that is, okay? But then you also have 2 other aspects. How fast you're going to do the actual bends that are your vibrato, or, and then also how wide you're going to do the bends. All right, so I'm doing a, right, so slow and wide, but very narrow too. It depends on the situation. I like to do both, frankly. It depends on how, I do the big wide vibrato when I want it to be just, I don't know, let's see. Maybe if I do it from down here. If I want it to be over the top, I'll do that kind of wide vibrato. Basically, if I'm doing it with a bent note, I'll basically release it all the way, rather than, that's probably my more default, is narrower. But I might do like, I'm basically releasing the bend all the way down and doing it a whole bunch of whole step bends over and over again. All right, so yeah, so you can do both of them. How wide and how fast are you going to bend? Practice it with narrow bends and wide bends. Practice it with fast and slow. I like to just go with the pace of whatever the music is. I'm playing by myself, so I guess I do have a default speed, but it's not particularly fast. It's just even. It has to be even with speed and width of the bends. That's the thing. So work on that a lot. I can't stress that enough. Okay, here's a pretty obvious one, but anyway, number 7 is get your speed up. Okay, I'm over here on Guitar Practice Tools. Once again, Guitar Practice Tools. Oh, okay, that didn't work. There. Guitar Practice Tools. This is what we're looking at this whole time, right? It's staring in the face. This was originally a speed building tool. The very first thing that pops up is 16th notes. That's what this is for. This right here is a speed building tool. You start at the slow speeds where it's easy, but you can do it correctly. You gradually work your way up, like everybody says you're supposed to. Reach the point where you're falling apart and can't even do it once. Take note of that speed. You work your way back down gradually until somewhere in the middle where you felt it tiring. That's how you build speed. And this is the aspect of musicianship that literally any person can do. You don't have to be special to develop speed, but boy, does it exude control. And it's very impressive. Let's face it, hundreds of years of shred on various instruments exists for a reason. There's a reason that this keeps happening. Since Bach and Vivaldi's time, in particular, we've been listening to kick-ass shred, and it just doesn't stop. It's amazing how fast a person can play and still have complete control and make it look so easy. Let's not pretend that's not awesome. And what's great is, that's something that you can do too, but you need to just apply the technique to do it. It's so repeatable, anybody can do it. But yeah, get your speed up. And something that most people don't realize about speed, you're not just like a slow guitar player or not. You're not just fast or not. You got like a speed profile. I talked about the easy, the falling apart, and the tiring. Tiring is when you feel your muscles getting tired out. That's actually the development of your muscle, the physical side of the development. It's also entirely mental. Okay, so that's something that people don't realize about this. We're seeing people's hands moving. You can't see their thoughts. All right, but from the physical development side, There's those 3 magic spots. That's all relative to the person, easy, falling apart, and tiring. Okay, I'm going to get to the mental side of that in a minute, but what most people don't realize about speed is that it's not like overall. I don't have a easy speed that's me, and there's no overall speed. It's for every damn thing you ever do. Every skill is going to have its own speed profile with it easy, a falling apart, and a tiring. So it's not going to be, this is why most of my time as a teacher is spent dealing with managing and evolving someone's practice routine, whoever my student happens to be at that moment. That is what most of the work is for me when I'm not doing this show. It is managing practice routines, because it's very complicated, because you don't have just one thing to do, and you shouldn't be doing just one thing. You can do all this stuff we're talking about tonight, by the way, in a single hour if you do it in a certain way. Anyway, yeah, get your speed up. That's something anybody can do. But yeah, another thing is that when you're learning to do something fast, you're not primarily doing a physical thing. In fact, before everything, you're actually doing a mental thing. The reason that we're using going this slow speed to high speed and back down is because for every time you go a little bit faster, it's only a little bit harder than what you just did. And then you do the same thing a little bit faster. So we're mentally processing this much information in a little less time, and a little less time, a little less time, a little less time, a little less time, and it's harder and harder and harder and harder. But now it's easier and easier and easier as we go back down. And even though, so I might go from 130 to 140 and then like max out at 150, and each one of them was progressively harder than the last. 130 was harder than 120, and 140 was harder than 130, and 150 is so damn hard I can't do it, so I'm going to go back down. 140, okay, that's hard, but that's actually, it's easier than 150 where I couldn't do it, and hey, 130 is actually easier than where I could barely do it at 140, and 120, hey, let's finish here because I'm back into the realm of control now. It's a mental game you're doing. You're training your brain first to process the information, and your brain has to do that in order to even do any of the things with your hand. Every movement your body makes is your brain doing it. It's all 100% mental. Physical is just an extra layer. It's all mental. All speed is mental. Okay, so anyway, 2 more. Number 8 is build a solid vocabulary of chord progressions. Okay, and this is another stupid 503 error here, but you'll notice here on this backing tracks page, 3 little links here. I want you to be able to get between the different kinds of backing tracks that I use on this site, which is part of how this is designed. The beats are first, because rhythm is almost always. Chord progressions on the next one, that's what I'm loading on the other page, and we already saw the drones page. All 3 pages look pretty much the same. You can't tell. This one's a little bit different color, because it doesn't matter why. Anyway, and these are all just organized by what the root note of the major or minor key is. So you got 12 categories, different numbers of tracks. This is the closest thing to the backing tracks that you would find on YouTube that you're going to find on the Guitar Practice Tools suite, but it's not quite the same still. This is basically, most of these are one chord progression, sometimes just a single chord change back and forth for an entire 10 minutes, so that you can flesh out your ideas and get comfortable with a wide variety of things that become your vocabulary over that type of chord change, not that specific chord change. So if I have E minor and D, that doesn't mean that you're only ever going to be able to use that over E minor and D. You're going to be able to use that over any 1-7 progression in a minor key. So I'm preparing you for the chord progressions that I know for a fact you're going to encounter in any rock or metal scenario. That's what these are. Right? So this is why you should get yourself a free 30-day trial of Guitar Practice Tools at guitarpracticetools.com. You have nothing to lose and everything to gain. So start your trial right now, or not right now, because I got one more thing to tell you. Okay, and number 9, the final thing here is practice writing melodies and harmonies. And that's not something you're going to do on Guitar Practice Tools, because you need to get yourself, as I said earlier, a recording interface and some recording software. And again, the recording interface is like $100. Don't get anything from Creative. I know that's something that you might get at your local computer store. Don't get it at a music store. I use a PreSonus audio box. I think it's actually discontinued now, but it's basically there's already a PreSonus audio box model which has replaced the one I use. There's still one out there. It's $100. You got 2 inputs. You can plug your guitar straight into it. Use free guitar modeling software. You can use a lot of free software. In fact, grab something to write with here. ShredMentorOnline.com/recording. I've created a special tool to help whoever. It's a free tool that you can use to find free plugins for your, so that you can basically get up and running with software and what little hardware you need, so that your computer is now a recording studio and therefore a learning tool, so you can interact with what you're doing. Because if you are not writing and interacting with ideas that you can hear and update in real time, you are never going to quite understand theory, because music theory is about the way sounds work together. So if your only musical experience as a musician is you by yourself in a room, you're never going to fully understand it, because you're studying a topic that you're not actually engaged in doing in the activity that matters. So you need to be recording. You must record. It doesn't matter if you're not ready to write an album. You never will be if you don't start recording ahead of time. I practiced recording for many, many years, and writing and trying the different things and how to use the different modes over different chords. And that mode starts on the root of that chord, but same chord, this one starts on the third, this one starts on the fifth. I can play any of those three modes over that chord. If it's the root note, it's A minor in the key of A minor. I can play Aeolian, I can play Ionian, and I can play Phrygian, because that's the 1, the 3, and the 5. Those are the modes that start on that, but they're all Aeolian because A minor is Aeolian in the key of A minor. So getting an idea of how to work with that, what to do over a 1/6 progression. You won't get good with chord progressions or writing melodies and harmonies along to them unless you're actually going out of your way to, okay, let's practice writing melodies over a 1/6 progression or a 1/7 progression or whatever the chord change is. Until you're doing that, you're going to continue to not be good at doing it, because you'll be unfamiliar with it and not be getting any actual experience doing it. So yeah, really want to drill that into your head as hard as possible. Record at home now. Doesn't matter how far along, you might as well, this is another set of skills, by the way. So if you're still learning your guitar, good. You might as well learn how to use it to make music at the same time, because this is a skill you have to practice. You don't just get really good at playing guitar and then magically be able to write songs and great melodies. It's all going to sound like exercises. It's the only version of playing music that you ever do is play exercises. So trust me on this one. Start recording yourself. But also, again, get guitar practice tools. There's really no reason not to be getting guitar practice tools at guitarpracticetools.com. Get a 30-day trial. I've updated it. It used to be 7 days because I thought that should be enough. But you know what? I'm going to sweeten the deal a little bit. An entire month. You can't beat it. And it's really cheap. It's $10 a month after that. So you have an entire month to decide whether getting crazy amounts of better results out of your practice time is worth $10 a month for you or not. So you really can't lose. So go to guitarpracticetools.com right now, because I'm done and I'm getting out of here. But anyway, thank you all for joining me. I really love it when you guys, participate and add to it. Like what I wouldn't have thought to say what Matthew said about the vibrato in there, because I was just going to touch on it. But that's a great point. Is that wide vibrato? That you can develop that right now. You can just basically. Oh yeah. So the practice part of it. Okay. One of the best ways to honestly, you probably see this coming here, but one of the best ways to manage all this in your time is to let me help you. Okay. At first. Okay, until you get the hang of practicing in a way that you might not have practiced before. This is where you should probably just go to ShredMentor.com, fill out the form, and set up a free coaching call with me. It's only a half an hour, no obligation. You don't have to sign up for anything, but we can talk about what's going on with your playing, what works, maybe what doesn't, maybe you don't understand what is working and what's not, and we can kind of pinpoint where the problems are coming from. What are you struggling to do? What doesn't make any sense to you? And we can take it from there. The best thing I can say for you without doing that and in general is don't practice just one thing a day. Find as many ways as you can to at least combine 2 or more of those things we talked about tonight into one exercise. Maybe not initially. You might practice an exercise here and then do a different exercise here. So you maybe do like a sequence. And then bend at the end. So let's say that's. So 4 times the sequence of 4. Maybe that's the first exercise. And then maybe bending exercise. Well, you can alternate between doing them and make it one exercise. So let's say 2 reps. 2, 3, and a 4, and a 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. You see, so when you have the beat playing, this is how I do it when I practice. I'll just do the same exact thing here. 2, 3, 4. Oops. Start again. And so I gotta get used to, the 4 note per string version, and then get ready to bend with that pinky and shift the other fingers up there. So being able to do your bends in real time is pretty important. Otherwise, if you're just practicing it from where it's super convenient and you have all the time in the world to position your finger, in music, you have to do things at certain times. So you might as well practice it in such a way that it eventually makes you have to. So that's one way you can take 2 completely separate skills and turn them into one exercise and save some time. So the best way I can say is structure your practice for an hour a day, and then also break that hour into, just to be general here, break it into 6 separate 10-minute segments. Okay, focus very intently for each of those 10 minutes on a different area of your playing. Don't spend or squander, rather, an entire hour on one skill just because you haven't mastered it yet. This is the doom of so many guitar players. Don't be another one of them. Don't squander your practice time for an entire day on one thing or 2 things. You should have at least 6 things on your schedule. Just treat it as a checklist. This is where I said earlier, don't get too specific, okay? When you play, then get specific. But when you plan, what is on your checklist of things that you want to make sure are included in the rotation? I want you to write down right now, okay? Grab that piece of paper from earlier, maybe make your 9 square grid, but turn it on the back. I want you to just make a list of all the things that you specifically would like to have in your bag of tricks. You don't have to classify it in the way I said here, but start listing things you really wish you were better at. Okay, get specific there. Okay, something not too specific. I don't, doesn't have to be like how to play the sequence of 4s in ascending A natural minor in the 5th position. It doesn't have to be that specific, but sequence of 4s, alternate picking, sweep picking. Just go with a technique in general, a general technique, or a specific scale you want to get more familiar with, and then piggyback off of a scale you already know that's similar. So if you want to get good at harmonic minor, use natural minor if you already know that one, and build on that. Or if you just want to get more familiar with harmonic minor or whatever, one scale, and you're not familiar with any of them, just start doing sequences with that scale. And again, I'm simplifying it because it will be too complex to be any use to you. I'm very used to this system, but it's a bit for me to still navigate because we're talking about getting good at everything, literally everything. You're going to literally have to sort of do one thing at a time, but we're going to go out of our way to combine things as much as possible so that one exercise encompasses a great deal more than what one exercise usually encompasses for most people. So that is why I do recommend that you just save yourself some time and effort and frustration and just go to ShredMentor.com right now. Reach out, let's talk and have a actual call. I can help you from anywhere in the world as long as you have an internet connection and a working webcam. Okay, so anyway, that's where I'm going to leave it. But I hope you got a lot out of this tonight. I also meant to say from last week, if you did not get a copy of it, I actually set up a better way to do this. Hang on one second. In the last week's episode, Compose with Me, I actually created something in MIDI, and I have actually created an entire, well, not a whole song out of it, but I put everything into metal guitar. It's a 3 guitar part, so you have 5 different MP3s showing the evolution of the composition. One being the original piano, two being the metal version or the metal arrangement of that piano part. Part three is actually another thing I composed before the show started last week, and I wanted to work that in later afterwards, so I actually created a little bit, I wrote more, and then it shows up. So I did a mix down of that, and then I did the metal arrangement of the newly completed part A and B, and then I did a fifth version, which is that looping back into itself, because I realized where it left off, it led right back into the very first note of the composition perfectly and seamlessly. So I have a version showing that happen. Then you also have the PDF of the tab of exactly how I played them, and the actual MIDI of all of the ideas that were in there, so that I had to work with, including some melodies that didn't even get used. So you can get all that for free at the link that I am now putting in the chat. And there it is right there. So you can just type that if you're watching this after the fact, but since we're live right now, you can go ahead and just click on it in the actual live chat. But anyway, I did say I had to go about 10 minutes ago, and I do. So thank you once again for joining me tonight. I hope that you found this stuff useful. Don't hesitate to reach out to me at ShredMentor.com so that I can help you save a lot of time and effort and frustration in your playing and on your journey. But hopefully this kind of narrows it down between rhythmic skills, sequences, licks from specific guitarists, as well as general licks in a stylistic kind of sense, techniques and patterns that you've done really well, great phrasing, getting your speed up, building a vocabulary of chord progressions, and of course practicing writing melodies and harmonies. Again, there's our list. That's a pretty damn good bag of tricks to have, and even if you only have a couple of those things, it's a really good thing to be able to do just some of that on the spot, and especially the phrasing side. If you can get expressive, even with simple playing, you can build a whole damn career and be somebody. You can be a guitar god. You know, David Gilmour comes to mind. He's very good, don't get me wrong, but the melody, he's not shredding. You know, he's just doing really damn expressive, badass stuff. So, you know, Pink Floyd, great place to study. He's one of the best masters of awesome phrasing, and he's just testament to how important that is, because you don't have to shred at all to be a badass guitar player, or at least show people you've got the goods. So on that note, I'm going to take off, and I wish you all a great week. I will see you next week at the same time, Tuesday nights at 8 p.m. Don't miss it. See you next week.